special 11th week edition of Fantasy Inception. I'm going to be your host today, Dave Bino Rabinowitz, and I'm here with the best producer in town, Chris Rowlands. Chris, say hello.
Hello, guys. Sorry, we have to be the ones gracing your face this week, but when duty calls, we step up.
And that's what's required here in Fantasy Inception, and we're really honored to do it. We got a great show for you guys today. It's going to be very Dynasty focused based podcast for the league. There's always next year. We're going to be going over the league playoff race. We got talking about strategy, trading draft picks for players and what's come of it. 7 first-round draft picks have been traded in this league. We want to discuss the strategy behind all that. We're going to talk about Cooper Kupp and his injuries and what's going to go happen on with the Los Angeles Rams. We're going to buy and sell some of our favorite players. And we're also going to have a special Clown Town rank 'em penalties. So stay tuned. We're happy to go through this with you and be here with you guys and have a good time. Apparently, I lost week 10 of the Rankum, and so did Chris. We tied. So you would think that the penalty is hosting the podcast, but apparently we have to do even more than that. So I chose to do a podcast intoxicated, and so this will be in reverse, but I've been drinking this 1920 Old Foresters. This podcast is not sponsored by Old Foresters. I had a drink of this before.
Unfortunately.
Right, exactly. Future podcast advertiser. But Four Fingered Pour had another one before this. And, if you need any proof, you'll probably see me slurring my words throughout the podcast. So,
yeah.
Cheers.
If he's asleep by the end. and
Chris?
like he said, I also lost. Supposedly, according to Grossman, we both lost. I'm sure he's doing the math in his favor. I will actually be doing the 40-yard dash in the snow without my shoes. So later in the video, at the end, most likely, we'll have to film it separately. You guys will be witness to my speed and agility. So get ready for that.
Chris, will we have a timer timing you?
Yeah. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but yes, absolutely. And I promise I won't cheat. Maybe a little, but but it'll be fun regardless.
Well, let's get started here. So we want to go through the playoff race of what's going down in the league, and let's pull up some of these playoff teams here. Start off by going through the playoff race, and there's always next year. And as we know, the first top 5 teams make the playoffs, and the last team in is the top point scorer. So, Chris, I think we got a few locks for the playoffs here. I think that Long Haul Legends at 8-2 is pretty much a shoo-in to get in. I think myself personally and Finder also at 7-3. We've got pretty strong teams. It's going to be tough to fall off and lose, either the points that it's going to take or the record. And I think the Jewish Ditka, who's leading the league in points, he ain't going to fall off. He's got a pretty strong team. Would you agree that those 4 teams are probably kind of the leaders in the clubhouse right now?
I do, yeah. And I always think it's funny, with Ditka, how he's he's in 6th place. Like you said, he's he's close to leading the league in points, and it just blows my mind. And unfortunately, it's fantasy football. We always joke about it. How much is luck? How much is skill? And unfortunately, you just come up short sometimes on those matchups. So he's, like you said, he's going to make it in. It'll be interesting to see how it ends up. But as we go through these teams, we can test our own skill and see who's going to make it in the end.
Absolutely. And so we have essentially what amounts to about a 5-team race for the last 2 playoff spots. We have Adam Moreau. We got Mixing It Up. Landon or LW Rush 1. Crispy Taco, that's you. And Ryan Blackman. And, the last 3 teams, they've clearly given up. But it's going to be interesting because 5 teams for 2 playoff spots. That's a lot of competition that's going on here. A lot of everyone's 5-5 or better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's actually, it's cool to see. And I think it's fun when a league is like that, fairly competitive, down to what the last 5 games of the season before playoffs kick off. And it makes things a lot more fun than having, 4 teams at the bottom at 2 and what is it? 2 and 8. And, you're pretty much just playing out the end of the season until the playoffs. So I like it. It's a lot of fun.
And there's a lot at stake here. Not only are the 5 and 6 seeds to go in, and we'll get into this, in a little bit, but there's also the toilet bowl winners. There's some competitive teams, to get that number 1 pick, number 2 pick. So we're going to go through this team by team and, pick off who we think, may wind up clinching the playoff spots, what their chances may be going forward, and whether or not these other teams, whether it's worth it for them to go for it, or whether they're better off sitting back and trying to win the toilet bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start out here with Adam Moreau, and just taking a look at his team here. He's got a very strong team. And it's led by Saquon Barkley, Ramondre Stevenson. He's got Scary Terry. He's got Tyler Lockett. Tough injury he had with Jamar Chase, and I think that has really, really hurt him and his chances. But he's got Vanilla Vic. He's got Leonard Fournette, Mariota. A lot of good players. Brandon Cooks. I'll tell you what I like most about his team. Is that with Jamar Chase? I mean, this guy's a top performer. He was close to first place for a long time, competing. Mm-hmm. He's got lots of touchdown scorers. He's got a lot of players that command the ball. What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. I look at the team and you named, the heavy hitters, your Barkley, McLaurin's coming on, Fournette. I honestly don't know what to think of him. He started out the year really well, and then I don't know if it's the Brady divorce or what, but Tampa Bay has just fallen off. Fournette, he's not running as strongly as what he used to. He's actually getting touches replaced by White. I have him in our redraft league, and I honestly don't know what to do with him. He's on a bye this week, so hopefully Moreau gets him out of there. But I don't know what to do about him. I don't, as quarterbacks, I just, with Jones and Mariota, sometimes you don't really know what you're going to get with them. Honestly, is Mariota going to go off for 2-3 touchdowns? You don't know. I do like his team. I don't know if he's got enough to beat some of the other teams that we're going to be reviewing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, with his quarterbacks, they're really good fantasy quarterbacks in that they run a lot and, they're able to make plays with their legs and maybe run in some touchdowns. But in this league, we benefit, from passing touchdowns. It's not that, significant of an advantage. But I do like his team, but he needs Jamar Chase back, and he needs him back fast if he's going to hang in this race. Moving on, we got Mixing It Up here, and he's got a very interesting team. He's got Jonathan Taylor, he's got Joe Mixon, Deonta Foreman, he's got Hopkins, Lamb, and Michael Carter. And so I love his top position players. I mean, I think those top position players can go against anybody, any playoff team, any, championship team. But he doesn't have the depth maybe that you're looking for. But he's got 2 top 5 backs. He's got 2 top 10 wide receivers, and then he's got Derek Carr and that good-looking guy, Jimmy G. What are your thoughts?
Jeff's team. So honestly, I ranked Jeff's team as second as far as the teams we're going to be going through. Second to actually get into the playoffs. I agree. He does have a strong team. He's got Taylor. He's got Mixon. And let me just point out that I'm pretty sure he just changed his name. I think he was trying to trade Mixon. His last team name, I think it was Don't You Know You Want Mixon or something like that. So he's already switched that up, and it looks like he's trying to stick with him now. But obviously Mixon, Hopkins, Lamb. We'll see if Hawkinson does anything now. Now that he's with the Vikings. But he's got the point scores needed to win some games and hopefully sneak in those last couple spots.
It's gonna be a tight race. Like I said, it would be very interesting to see where he would be if he had Derrick Henry still.
Yeah.
Remember, he traded him and he has a first-round pick for him, but may that have prevented him from potentially winning a championship. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. It's interesting. So I don't want to say he's gotten lucky by any means, but with him having Foreman, who has benefited greatly from McCaffrey leaving, he's got who was I just looking at here? Robinson, who got traded, to the Jets. Those could have potentially been killers for him if they weren't elevated to the position they're at now. So good for him for holding on to them. And they're actually, I'm surprised their projected points are as low as they are. But good for Jeff for holding on to him, and it's worked out for him.
Well, speaking about McCaffrey getting traded, let's move on to our next team, and that's yours. And I mean, you happen to have, you got Hurts, you got Chubb, you got Elijah Mitchell and McCaffrey. You got Connor, Geno, Debo, Sutton, Lazard. Kind of close it out with Mac Jones and Geno Smith. Or sorry, I think I already said Geno, but that's a good third quarterback there.
Yeah.
I mean, man, I love your running backs. I think Chubb and McCaffrey, Elijah, Connor. I mean, that's a top 4 that's not easy to compete with there. Especially now that Benjamin's been let go and he's with the Texans now. You got no more competition for James Conner. Hurts is a top 3 quarterback. Geno is an absolutely stud number 2. And so, I mean, I like your team a lot. It's really good. I think, the only weakness that I see, which is a weakness, is you're so San Francisco based. And if San Francisco gets held to 10 or 17 points, I mean, there's no guarantee that your guys are going to get the ball. What are your thoughts on your team?
Yeah, it's, I didn't plan it that way. Let's just say I would have never guessed that McCaffrey was going to go there, earlier in the season. And it's actually a little bit of a predicament, with that, because, what do I do? McCaffrey and Mitchell, both at running back. Do you start them both? You got to start McCaffrey regardless. But even with that, then what happens to Debo? Obviously his touches are gonna go down in the end, most likely. Ayuk's been playing really well. So it's put me in a very, very tough little predicament as far as who to play when, which I know who to play, but it's Mitchell had a heck of a game last week. I think he actually had more carries than McCaffrey, if I remember right. So it's tough, but I like my team too. They are strong. We talked about it, and I think Josh has talked about it in prior podcast or episodes, that some of them are older in a sense, obviously with it being a dynasty league. You have Patterson who's getting up there. Heck, McCaffrey's even been in the league for a while now, 5 years, I think it is. So I don't know. It's going to be tough. I think maybe in 3 years, my team's going to start falling off. I'm just going to hold on as long as I can.
Well, 3 years is a good window. And, I think in our league where there's, 3 flex spots, that Elijah McCaffrey combo can absolutely coexist. If Elijah's getting you 13, 14 points and McCaffrey's getting you 16 to 20 points, that works.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely great combo to have. Again, if San Francisco gets shut down, you wish maybe you had a little bit more diversity, but I wouldn't. I think both of those guys are absolutely good players, and I like your team a lot. And
one other thing.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say one other thing that I've been reading about is how Kittle has now become. He's been in more blocking schemes, and I don't know if that's obviously with McCaffrey coming in, with Mitchell coming in. That's how they're choosing to use him. They got Debo, Ayuk. So I guess that's good for me. Another big, experienced blocker out there. So we'll see.
Kittle blocks like a madman. I mean, the way he pushes people and fights. And we'll get into that role on Blackman's team because he's got the other two. He's got Kittle and Ayuk. But let's move down the standings to Landon here. And he obviously just recently traded me Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones in a signal of almost a white flag trade. He still has Allen and Diggs, Drake London, Marquise Brown. He's got Trevor Lawrence and Jacoby Myers. He's got the People's Choice, Donald's People Jones, and he's got Kareem Hunt too. Whenever Kareem Hunt gets some carries, and I don't love his team. Obviously, when you trade those 2 top backs, and it leaves a gigantic hole. But at the same time, he's 150 points up on a lot of these teams, and there's not a lot of time to make that stuff up. And his team isn't that bad. So, do you think he can hang on here? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the big question is Allen. If he's going to stay healthy, I think he'll hang on if Allen stays healthy. You got Allen, like you said, Allen, Diggs. I don't like his running back situation. With
That's
Hunt
pretty bad.
And it's pretty. Yeah, Hunt and Ingram, even Murray. It's kind of up in the air as far as how many touches he's going to get. So I don't know. Personally, I don't think he'll make it, but I think I had him 3 or 4 on my list to get in. His big players have to show up. If they don't, he's going to struggle.
Yeah, and maybe Buffalo going to Detroit this week or I guess I should say for the next 2 weeks may help him actually get in, being in that dome and being away from the weather, and Allen and Diggs together could be a lethal combination there.
Well, and I'll just add in, it'll be interesting because with Peoples Jones, is Watson coming back next week? When is that? I know it's coming up.
Week
so it'll
13.
be interesting to see. Is it? Okay. So
2 weeks.
It'll be interesting to see. He's been doing really well. We'll see what kind of rapport he has with Watson once he steps in.
Yeah, it's going to be – Deshaun Watson's going to be a very interesting person and can make or break a lot of leagues with the way, that he's going to – are they going to become, a more running team because they're afraid of Deshaun Watson running? Is he going to be an elite passer? A lot of questions we don't know here. Even David Njoku, his value is going to, really fluctuate when Deshaun Watson returns. And last but not least, we have Ryan Blackman. And Blackman's star players are Murray and Stafford. He's got Kenneth Walker. He's got Gibson. He's got Mostert. He's got A.J. Brown, Gabe Davis, Pittman, Kittle, Ayuk. And so, he has the talent. I just don't think his talent is consistent enough to maybe produce at the level that it's going to take to get to the playoffs. And that's, I guess, my biggest concern for him. And I'm wondering, Chris, do you think that he's going to have issues with this consistency, based on, Kittle and Ayuk and Gabe Davis, kind of some of the most inconsistent players in the game?
I do. I agree with everything you said. With Stafford, he just hasn't played well this year. The Rams in general haven't played that well. Murray doesn't seem to be his normal self. He has had some monster games, but he's had some health injuries lately.
Well, Call of Duty came out.
Yeah. Was he on there or something?
They had a clause in his contract. They were very worried that he was going to play too much Call of Duty and not read the playbook enough.
Oh my God, are you serious?
I can't make that stuff up.
When you get paid that much money, you can put down a video game controller.
I would.
But yeah. Honestly, though, I agree with you. It depends on his team. I don't see anyone on his team that really week after week puts up those points. And that's something he's going to need to, like you said, catch up to Landon or some of the other teams that are more consistent on their scoring.
Yeah. And so I guess if I were to rank them, rank the 5 contending teams for the last 4 playoff spots, or I guess the last 2 playoff spots, but more importantly, I guess we don't know how it's going to wind up with points, because Elliott could wind up, getting there at 4, and then points matter significantly more. But I happen to think, and this isn't because you're, hosting the podcast with me, I happen to think that you should make the playoffs. I think that Moreau would probably be my number 2 team in. Again, that also depends on Jamar Chase. But Jeff would be number 3. I would put Landon 4 and Blackman 5. How do you have them ranked?
Yeah, so I had it myself as well, as first as getting in. I think my team, I'm hoping my team's really going to step it up down the stretch. And I don't think, unless my team goes off, I'll be able to catch Landon, but hopefully I can end up with a better record at the end that sets me apart from that scoring total. But so I had Jeff as 2nd, Moreau as 3rd, Landon as 4th, and Blackman in 5th. So,
and I guess we should get into this. Why do you think Jeff over Moreau?
I just think that his team is a little bit stronger in general. I like Taylor. He had a heck of a game last week. Mm-hmm. Maybe, with the coaching change, they'll have turn it around. I like Mixon. I think with his quarterbacks, Carr and Garoppolo, they're not putting up Justin Fields numbers, but they're enough to get him, anywhere from 17 to 20 plus points a game. And then, like I said, he's got, Foreman and Robinson have worked out for him, and I think they're going to be the primary backs there. So I see it being a stronger team in the end to get those points. And, although Moreau is in the 4th spot, I'm not as confident with his team. Like I said, Fournette, I have doubts about him. Mariota and Jones, a little bit concerned there with them being consistent, but
he does have Russ, and he does have Lockett.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. But even Russ, they got him projected at 22 points a game, which surprises me. It's like, he shook off everything the whole first half of the year. I don't know. We'll see.
No, and certainly with the Jerry Jeudy injury, he could certainly be worse going forward. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And that goes into our next topic, which is, would you rather be the 5 or 6 seed or fighting in the toilet bowl? And I think what Jeff did is absolutely phenomenal. In that he traded for another first round pick, and I think he hopes obviously that first round pick's going to turn out, and he's going to 2 first round picks this year, along with a team that could potentially make the playoffs. Maybe he gave up a chance to win the championship. Maybe he didn't. I don't know that you can win the championship this year. But my take, and what I go back to is at some point, 5 weeks ago, I was 2-3, and I was trying to improve my team for next year, but at the same time, I wasn't ready to give up. But I was ready to win the toilet bowl, is what I will say. And that is honestly what I wanted to do, because you can tell from my team. I mean, I'm sitting here and I got Jared Goff as my number 2 quarterback, and I don't have a way to improve it. And so winning the toilet bowl is kind of sometimes the way to get the best quarterback, the best running back, one of the best receivers. And so at some point you have to decide, are you going to win a championship or are you not? And I think the way teams, fought this year and everything like that, it's great to always have a chance, but at the same time, when there are these super stacked teams, and I mean, I would put Finder in there, but he just lost Cooper Kupp. But I think that Cheelan and myself and Elliott, these teams, it's not easy to beat them in the playoffs. Anyone can win anything, but I would rather win the toilet bowl than sneak into the playoffs. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, honestly, 2 weeks ago, I was ready to kind of throw in the towel and start competing on the lower half of our the teams trying to win the toilet bowl. But Elijah Mitchell came off IR, started winning some games, and I actually got in a position to potentially get into the playoffs. Honestly, I didn't think I was going to get there. I do think my team is strong enough to where if I get in the playoffs, I'll have an opportunity to score enough points and hopefully win it. Obviously you don't know, but I think regardless, even if I don't win, I'm still set up enough next year to compete as well. So I'm all in at this point. We'll get into me, trading earlier in the year for somebody that I think has helped me. But in the sense of, toilet bowl, or do you play for sneak into the playoffs? I did a little bit of research and found out that a hit rate on actually getting a rookie with your draft pick on average is 19%, a 19% chance to get somebody who is going to actually start in your league. Now, the odds of them hitting and getting multiple years starting level on your fantasy team is 11%. So, honestly, it's interesting going through the numbers. If you were to, the hit rate of getting a first rounder is 45%. Hit rate of getting a second round is 30%, and a third round is about 9%. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, well, what you said is very intriguing, because there's the first rounders, that you said at 45%, and that's not a great rate, and you have 3 flex spots. So what are the chances that you're drafting someone that's going to start in your flex spot week after week? What's the chances that you're going to draft somebody that's going to sit on your bench for a really long time? Like, for example, Sky Moore, Sky Moore would probably be a late first, maybe an early second, in a good league. And it's a really, and it's one of the reasons I maybe devalue first round picks is, you just never know.
Right.
But at the same time, then there's the Jamar Chases and there's the Patrick Mahomes, like all these guys eventually, if you're doing dynasty leagues, right? All these guys, they would have been first round picks. And so I would say maybe you never know. Maybe it's a 45% hit rate. but those 45% that hit, I mean, they may hit it big.
Yeah, and that's obviously what you hope for. Now, me personally, so this is my first year in Dynasty, and it is hard for me to truly value a first round pick. We'll get into using the first round pick to trade for whoever. Honestly, I don't know that value. At least I don't know it very well. I don't know next year the rookies well enough coming in. Am I going to need a running back? Am I going to need a wide receiver? Who could I possibly get if I were to get an early round pick? And maybe that's just me not being up on fantasy football enough, and probably why I don't
Maybe
win
college
year
football
after
enough.
year. Yeah, that too. So honestly, and I'm actually glad that I'm actually in the playoffs, because I wouldn't know what the heck to do, with a first or second round pick if I actually got it.
And that's, I think, the toughest part is, how do you value the second round picks or the third round picks? Everyone knows a first round pick has some value. Everyone knows, or you can find out the top 12 players. But when you're taking into the 24 and the 36 range, I mean, and this is my first year in Dynasty too. How do you know anyone you're going to draft is going to ever pan out? And it's not worse than a maybe you get an Isaiah Pacheco, but maybe you also get an Isaiah Spiller, right? I mean, you don't know. It's always a very tough and very difficult decision to ever part with a draft pick. But transitioning to our next topic, 7 first-round draft picks were exchanged this year. And obviously, as we kind of talked about, this is my first, year in a Dynasty draft. This is your first year in the Dynasty draft. But between all these picks, right, is this smart for all of more than half of our league to trade first-round picks? What do you think?
It is. I'm sure there is value in doing it. Like I said, I struggle in finding that value. Now, I'm one of the ones who did trade a first round pick earlier in the year, and this actually overflows into another topic we'll get. But I didn't do a good job of drafting, and it wasn't apparent to me at the time until probably, I don't even know, 3 or 4 weeks in. But I needed a third quarterback, and I needed him bad. Oh, I think my second quarterback got hurt. I think that's what it was. And there was absolutely nobody to pick up. When you have 12 teams and everyone's got at least 3 quarterbacks, it gets a little rough there on the waiver wire. So it was something that I knew that I had to do if I wanted to compete this year. So I don't. Well, it's worked out so far for me, so I can't complain there. But like with Landon, Landon did some trades with his first round picks. Getting Henry, giving Henry up, getting a second round pick out of it in there somewhere. But his trades have kind of been messed up with some injuries. I think Herbert. I'm not sure how long Herbert's out, but it really just depends on the position of the team and what they need and what they can get for that first round pick.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like our league is when seven first round picks are traded. There's a lot of teams that certainly, I guess, at the initial onset of the league, that are going to be trying to trade, trying to be competitive, because that's all we know is being competitive, and we're not thinking about 3-4 years down the road. And then maybe a disadvantage to teams, such as yours, such as mine, that even though we may be set up for the next year or two, kind of going forward, is are the teams that have two first round picks this year, really going to take advantage of that and take control of this league in 2025, 2026. And, I know a lot of it depends on drafting. But ultimately, I think, as we go forward, I think, all of us are probably going to value these first round picks maybe a little bit more. Try and really see if we need to give up that first round pick to become a championship contender. But it's tough in the first year to really know whether you are or you're not.
Yeah, because you look at Landon's his second trade, I think in particular, where he traded Henry and Jones to you, and then he got back his first round pick, but he's left with Herbert, who's now hurt. So it's almost like you cut your own head off if it doesn't work out for you in the end.
Well, I hope for Landon's sake that Khalil Herbert winds up being the starting running back of the Bears next year, and that was, I think, the premise that he was taking him and trading him and giving me obviously two really top tier running backs, or at least one top tier running back and maybe a second top tier running back for a first in him. So in that vein. This is our first year, and we've kind of both discussed that. What mistakes have you made? And kind of introspectively, how would you correct that?
Yeah, like I said earlier, the biggest thing is not drafting that third quarterback right off the bat. Being new to Dynasty, I wasn't as familiar or ever use on any other leagues a super flex position. But when you look at the quarterback who, I don't want to say guaranteed to get 15 points, but probably 15 to 20 points, somewhere around there. If not more, you got Herbert, scoring 40 points, multiple games in a row. That can just easily set you apart from a lot of the other teams if you have strong quarterbacks. So that was my big thing, and why I traded my first round pick for Geno early on, because Mac Jones got hurt, and then I was left high and dry. I was already getting hurt by injuries, and it was just something I had to do. And Geno was, and props to Grossman for trading him, but Geno was killing it at the time, and he's still doing pretty well. But Grossman, he got him at his value is high, and it was one of those things where I had to jump on it when I could. And if you look at quarterbacks, they hardly ever hit the waiver wire now.
Yeah, no, and they go for insane amounts, and Grossman got tremendous value. I mean, we don't even have to talk about what he was able to pull for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
My biggest regret, honestly, is kind of the same as yours. It's not prioritizing quarterbacks. I mean, talk about two things. Number one, my biggest regret, you never know where you're gonna be and what you're gonna be, I guess. And so there's two things specifically that I regret this season. And number one, I mean, I drafted Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and I wanted Tua to come back to me and draft Tua to have that kind of stack. And I really, really like that stack. And so I got a lot of shit when the draft ended for taking Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. And I wound up trading Tyreek because ultimately I didn't, at 2 and 3, I didn't know where I was going as a team. I just wanted to get younger. I wanted to get better. And so I think I regret obviously trading Tyreek to probably the biggest, one of the biggest contenders that I have. But I guess also, kind of not being able to understand where my team's position is, and not being in a lot of my weaknesses, and why I traded was because I viewed Zach Wilson as not, after what happened, and just not being able to really be a quarterback that I could rely upon. And I felt that if I cannot rely upon my number 2 quarterback, I really probably can't compete for a championship. And so because of that, I traded Tyreek, and I traded for T. Higgins, and then my team went on a 4-game winning streak. I wound up trading for Jared Goff just to kind of stabilize the number 2 quarterback. But I mean, my biggest regret is definitely not drafting that depth at quarterback, and kind of getting into the draft. My biggest regret, I drafted Zach Wilson over Kirk Cousins. Man, Now the day goes by. I don't think about, man, if I was just like, all right,
Don't
I
tell
can't
anybody
Cousins. It's very easy to look up. It's not. It
Yeah.
cannot be hidden for the public to consume. But obviously that's what I put in my heart is my biggest mistake is not having that sense to draft a stud number 2 quarterback and just being. Cousins isn't going anywhere for 2 to 4 years and just being like, okay, you know what, I'm fine with that for 2 to 4 years. What was your biggest draft day mistake introspectively?
Yeah, like I said, that third, not drafting that third quarterback as well. It honestly, it handcuffed me from the beginning. I had Mac Jones, but I knew he wasn't going to be that guy to lead me in. I just didn't, I don't know, being new to Dynasty, I didn't know the value in it. I had drafted, and honestly, I probably missed out on so many opportunities to get some of those lower end quarterbacks. But I'm over
You
here,
didn't.
drafted.
You didn't. I will tell you. You drafted Mac Jones
really?
over Zach Wilson. I wanted Mac Jones.
Oh, did you? But even after, I wonder. I haven't looked at the draft as much, but a lot of these guys that I drafted, I was just hoping for value down the road, like Cedric Wilson and Braxton Berrios. Yeah, I'm sure I could have gotten another lower end quarterback at least to fill in, and I wouldn't have had to trade away, first rounder. So,
all right,
live and you learn.
Let's talk. Live and learn. That's Dynasty. Do you think you would ever be interested in another Dynasty league, or is this it? You can only do one.
I don't know. I probably would. I don't. It would have to be with friends. Obviously, that's what makes makes the most of a lot of these leagues is talking smack and trades and just things like that. I can't put up with the weekly highs and lows of fantasy football without being able to talk smack to somebody.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's have a fun game here. Let's go position by position and talk about from draft day to today. Who do you think has raised their stock the most in Dynasty? And let's start with quarterback. What do you got?
So my quarterback, I went with Fields. Obviously, he has just exploded recently. I looked up, he was the 30th pick in our draft, and he didn't crack 20 points until week 7. And he's posted, I think, over 20 points, 4 games in a row, 2 of which have been 40 points. And he's actually already the 5th best quarterback in our league up to this point. So I don't know. I think Moreau has him, if I remember right. I don't remember.
No, Moreau drafted him. He traded him to
that's right. Okay.
To Cheelan, and Cheelan's taking full advantage of that. First, I want to say for a second round pick. I think there was a little bit more there in the trade, but it was.
He got lucky there. I don't think anybody expected it, and it's weird to me that he just comes on like he did in the middle of the season. But props for him for, I guess, trading for him.
And you took Fields. That's a great pick, and he would be my number 1. But because you took him, and I just want to give the crowd somebody else. I would say Tua. I mean, Tua has just been unbelievable, and same team. I mean, Cheelan. It's I believed in the Dolphins. That's why I drafted those 2 wide receivers, but I couldn't get. I couldn't get to it, and so that's why I wound up trading Tyreek. But man, the Tua is a stud, and so I would say he's really raised his dynasty prospects to probably top 5, top 6 quarterback.
Yeah.
What do you think about running back? What do you got?
Running back, I went with ATN. He's the lead back now. They got Robinson out of there. He was actually the 58th pick in our draft. he had a bad game, I think, last week, but each week, especially without Robinson there, they're increasing his carries. His point total's going up. I think he's the 12th best running back so far this year as well in our league. So I don't think, I think a lot of people knew eventually he was going to take over for Robinson, but honestly, I didn't think it would be as quickly as what it was.
Yeah, and obviously, as the owner of ETN, I agree. He's definitely.
I tried to get him from you, I think.
I think you did.
Yeah.
I would prefer him catch a little bit more passes, and maybe as Trevor Lawrence matures, he will start to check it down to him a little bit more. But my pick was Kenneth Walker. And as a rookie, it's tough to say, that you increased your value, but this guy was a 7th round pick. And I have to say, if we were going to start a dynasty league today, he'd probably be in the top 2 rounds. So he was my pick. He's proven to be a stud. He can run, break big runs. He can catch the ball. He's got nothing but upside for him. So I would say he's really improved his stock the most. So what do you think about wide receiver?
Well, real quick with him, what do you think will happen when Penny comes back?
I think Penny's gone.
Is he?
He's a free agent.
Good Lord, is he? He's sitting on my IR.
No, well, I think for you, I mean, he'll have value. He'll sign somewhere else, and he can be a really good running back. But for Seattle, I think they've found their running back of the future, and as long as they can build around him, I think that team's got. I mean, you got Geno and you got Walker, and you got Carroll. I mean, you got a really good tag team there. So I think you got a lot of upside with that team with Geno, and no matter what happens, I think that team's going to be a good team.
Yeah, right.
Can we edit that last part? Because I know you don't have Walker.
Yeah, that's fine. Did I draft him?
No, you did not.
I didn't. Okay, that's good. For a while there, I thought I did and dropped him, and I was killing myself. But yeah, I will edit that out.
Oh my God, I can't believe I just said you have Walker. Let's listen. This class is almost done.
Well, they. Okay. Yep.
All right. Moving forward, what wide receiver did you find to be the best value in the draft?
So I didn't look up and see when he was traded. I actually went with Waddle. I wasn't sure what to expect out of him with Hill going there. It's hard to overshadow Hill and steal too many, targets from him. But Waddle has been surprisingly good and fairly consistent. He had a few bad games, but he, even alongside Hill, I mean, he's still getting 10, 5, 9, 7 targets, and he's putting up the yardage as well. He's got 6 touchdowns this year. I figured he'd get that for the whole year. So honestly, I think that's where that value came through more than I would have expected.
As a Waddle owner, yeah, I mean he's come through a lot more than I expected, and specifically as you mentioned the touchdowns, it seems like Tua's, he certainly looks to Waddle when he's throwing the ball in the end zone, and that's all you can. To me, that's all you can ask for as an owner. Mine was Christian Kirk, and he's. I forgot when he was drafted, but it was pretty late, maybe a 7th, 8th round pick. But he's the number 7 wide receiver this year, and he's 26 years old. Yeah, and he's got this great chemistry with Trevor Lawrence, and I think he's really improved his value. I always liked him. I really liked him this year, but I didn't expect he'd be putting up these numbers. You never know, because Christian Kirk on Arizona he was this fly guy, and when Kyler Murray found him, he would find him, but he had Hopkins and he had these other weapons, that Gertz, that tended to take some of these targets away, to an extent, even Chase Edmonds.
Mm-hmm.
But Christian Kirk right now has just been,
he was in the 10th round.
10th round, yeah. What a value. I think in a redraft or even a dynasty league now, he's probably closer to a 4th or 5th rounder. So I think he's really improved his value there. What about tight end? Who do you think has really improved their value there?
Let me go back here. So we all knew about Kelsey and Andrews. Actually, a guy that I had and I think I dropped was Higbee. He started off strong. I want to say, maybe I'm thinking of our other league. He was dropped, picked him up. He's been fairly consistent. He has had a couple bad games, and being on the Rams is kind of a tough gig these days. But overall, he's been fairly consistent, putting up 15 plus points a game. Anybody's going to have the occasional stinker, but I'd go with Higbee on this one.
Yeah, and he's caught tons of catches this year. He's certainly been a great surprise. I think he was drafted probably outside the top 12 tight ends, and he's produced like a top 7, top 8 tight end. And you can only hope that his role will grow, certainly as Cooper Kupp went down. My tight end is pretty obvious. It's Cole Kmet. The way that he has just blossomed with Fields. And the way they're scheming him and getting him open, and the way that Fields finds him in the red zone, to me, wow. If I were going to draft 5 tight ends, he'd be in there. He's been pretty impressive, and I think that this carries over. I don't think it's a mirage. I think that he's got legit chemistry, and I think he's only going to improve on it.
I hope so. I have him in our other league, and or no, it is this league. Good Lord, he's on my team, but he was not.
I have him in our other league.
Yeah, no. I say that it's funny because he was terrible in the beginning of the year. Really, his last 2 games is where, like you said, and I don't know if him and Fields are running to Taco Bell after the games or what they're doing, but they're on the same page. They're definitely on the same page and somewhere where they weren't at the beginning of the year, because he scored over 20 points the last 2 games and didn't crack 10 for the first 8. So it is good to see something coming out of him finally.
Yeah, and he's definitely getting open. Just from being a Bears fan and watching these games, it's nice to see. And to touch upon kind of more of the big time weekly news, Cooper Kupp obviously just went on IR unfortunately, probably for the next 4 to 6 weeks, but he did have surgery. How do you think that's going to affect the Rams offense?
I think Allen Robinson will definitely get more involved than even what he is now. Van Jefferson, I think we'll have to step it up, but I don't see, maybe in deeper leagues playing him consistently, but he'll be touchdown dependent. How do you say it? Skowronek, good old buddy from Notre Dame. I think honestly, he's somebody I think I could see growing and becoming a good running back, a wide receiver down the road. But I don't know, I'm still not going to play Akers. Too inconsistent there, and I don't feel like they're behind him. So I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in the Rams offense, that's for sure. Let's just say that, regardless.
Yeah, I think the Rams they're pretty toast right now. I do think Skowronek is actually going to wind up being the biggest beneficiary of this, and he knows how to run a route, he knows how to get open, and it just doesn't seem like Stafford has the arm to really throw it downfield, at least today. I think maybe next year things could change, but as of right now, he hasn't thrown a propensity to throw it downfield. Allen Robinson doesn't appear to be getting open enough. And I certainly don't have enough faith in their line to keep Stafford up, to keep these running backs, finding lanes or anything like that. So I would agree with you. If anything, maybe Skoranek, but I mean, I would pass on this whole Rams offense if I could.
You know who's going to turn it around for him? They don't know it yet. Is Odell. Yep. Bring him back from the Super Bowl team. Yeah, everyone's talking about him going to, I think, Dallas, but I want to see the Rams pick him up and see if he can do something like what he finished the season with last year.
You know what I can't see with Odell? I can't see him ever going to New York. New York got rid of him. Said, "Fuck you, Odell." Can we say that? We can.
I'll bleep it out.
F you, Odell. Get out of here. Why would he ever want to go back there? Okay, they're 6-2. It's not like they have this amazing quarterback that he would want to go play for. Right? I mean, they're a running base team and they're check downs and they're they have their offense. But boy, I just can't see Odell coming back to the Giants. What about you?
Right. Yeah. I don't either. I think he'll go to I honestly don't. Everyone's talking like it's a guaranteed thing he's going to come back, but who knows? You don't know. He's had some injuries as of late. Maybe he won't get whatever contract he wants. I'm sure he wants a lot of money. So, yeah, I don't know. It would be nice to see him, I think, go back to the Rams. I think it'd be fun, but he probably sees the shape they're in and he says no thanks.
I would agree with you. All right, our next segment is buy, sell, keep. So we're going to go through a couple players at each position. And we're going to, say whether we would buy, sell, keep. We're not going to keep you too long. We're not going to go into too much detail. But it's going to be interesting to go through these players. All right. So our next segment is buy, sell, keep. And we're going to go over a couple players from each position and discuss whether we think they're buy, sells, or, maintain. And so we're going to start with the quarterback position. And the first quarterback we're going to talk about is Justin Herbert. And Justin Herbert's last 5 weeks, our quarterback 18, 24, 6, 18, and 24. Nice symmetry there. But I don't know if that's what you want in quarterback number one. Keenan's getting older. Mike Williams is hurt, and he's also getting older. Joshua Palmer's okay. But, given kind of the state of those wide receivers, what do you think? What would you do? Buy, sell, keep Justin Herbert?
So I actually put down keep for him. Honestly, I'd sell him if you could, but I feel like you'd have to give up way too much there. So I went with keep in the end. If the team is healthy, he has a chance to do better than he has. Allen being hurt, Williams being hurt, I think has hurt him. I don't know a whole lot about Herbert, but I went with keep on this one.
I went with sell. And my reasoning is I think there's a lot of quarterbacks who can do the same with less. It's nice to make excuses for them. Oh, you don't have, your best wide receivers. But what's Patrick Mahomes doing? What's Justin Fields doing? What are a lot of these top quarterbacks doing? And Justin Fields, Justin Herbert, you would have expected to maybe elevate the talent of his wide receivers. And I'm pretty disappointed in what he's been able to produce. And while I do think you're selling low, I just don't know that those highs are there. And maybe he was a product of the wide receivers rather than the wide receivers being a product of him. And so I would maybe try and sell Justin Herbert for, I'm not saying pennies on the dollar. And certainly Grossman would tell you I've been trying to get Justin Herbert for the past, month or so. But I really don't think he's what he was drafted at. I think I don't know that I could keep him where he's at with that value.
Yeah.
What about Geno Smith? Geno Smith is your player. Where do you have him? Buy, keep, or sell? What are you thinking?
I have him as I had him as keep as well, is where I ultimately ended up with. I do like him. Yeah, he's got Lockett. Honestly, I'm not sure how long Lockett's been in the league, but I think Geno is like 32 years old, which isn't that old in quarterback terms, but he's got Lockett, DK, Walker. He's got some guys he can do something with, and he's shown to be consistent. I don't think anybody anticipated him having a season like he has. So I'm sticking with him.
I also had Geno as a keep. His last few weeks, 19, 15, 13, 5, 11, what does that show you? I mean, he's a solid number 2 quarterback. And as you had kind of mentioned, earlier in the podcast, these quarterbacks are hard to find. It's hard to find quality quarterbacks at good, values. And I can't see someone trading you outrageous value for Geno Smith, but I also can't see you, selling him for anything less than what he's worth. I think he's worth exactly what he is right now. And that's a very strong value. So I agree with you. I have him as a keep.
Yeah, unfortunately, it cost me a first-round pick.
Well,
but honestly, like I said, it was worth it. So
I was going to say I gave up a second rounder for Goff. So
yeah,
I'll take that first rounder for Geno any day. Moving on to running back, we got DeAndre Swift. What are your thoughts on him?
I had him down as sell. Honestly, he hasn't had that great of a year. Had some injuries. I think he's back healthy now, and Williams still continues to get a pretty big share of the touches. His stock is so much lower now, unfortunately, than what it would have been earlier in the year. So you might have a hard time selling him, but I would go with sell at this point.
As a Swift owner, I agree with you. It's a sell. He hasn't had more than 10 touches since week 1. He cannot stay healthy. He's never had the number 1 role. And I'm wondering if Dan Campbell will ever trust him to have that number 1 role, or to at least, become some type of, elite, unique, ball toucher in a way, without sounding like a pervert. But I think that he's got a ton of potential, but he can't stay healthy. And so I hate to say it because he was my second round pick, but man, you give me the right offer for him, he's gone. It's tough. I think about AJ Dillon.
I had Dillon as a keep, actually. He's a good handcuff for Jones. He still gets his touches. I think he's getting like 10 plus touches a game currently, even with Jones in there. Jones has shown that, he can be injury prone at times as well. So you got to know that Jones is getting older. He's going to get hurt. And when Dillon gets in there, he's just, he's a bell cow, man. He just touch after touch. The Packers haven't been what they have been in the past, so that might hurt his stock a little bit. But I'd say hold on to him if you got him.
I'm a buy. How about that? And one of the reasons I think he's a buy is they can cut Aaron Jones after this year. And I don't know why they would pay him, Aaron Jones being, to continue the way they're doing and just being maybe a borderline playoff team. I think, you can save a lot of money by getting rid of him. I think A.J. Dillon's very talented, and he can do a lot of the things Aaron Jones can do. I think Aaron Jones is definitely better, but I don't know that Aaron Jones is a necessity to the Packers succeeding. And I think they're going to take maybe the stance of, at least at this point, as we talk today, November 17th, that Dillon is the future running back for next year, and maybe a year after that, they're getting rid of Jones, and we'll see what happens. So, my take on AJ Dillon is maybe get him now while he's cheap. Offer second, third round pick, get what you can for him. And I'm not saying the AJ Dillon owner will sell that, but
Right.
Do what you can to make a legitimate low ball offer, and this could be a stud running back for you next year.
Right. Yep.
Let's talk about Amari Cooper. He's certainly someone that with Deshaun Watson coming back has a lot of potential. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I was thinking. So I have him as a buy for that exact reason. With Watson coming back, I think that Watson's going to hit the ground running. I think everything surrounding him and his suspension, and he's going to want to prove something, and he's getting paid a lot of money to do it. So I think he's going to come out guns throwing, and I think Cooper is going to be, the lucky recipient with a lot of that. They have a good running game to keep the pressure off the wide receivers a little bit. So I'm a buy on him.
I am also a buy. I don't know necessarily that I think that Amari's going to make a difference this year, that Deshaun's going to be able to change him into something, because I don't know that Deshaun's going to be able to just start throwing the ball right away. But maybe he is, maybe he's not. But I certainly think for next year that Deshaun Watson's going to be a stud, and I certainly think that Amari's going to be the beneficiary of that. He's made players like Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks like studs, and all. Deshaun Watson's a stud, period. But DeAndre Hopkins has been a stud no matter where he's gone. But I think Deshaun is going to be able to kind of increase the level of his wide receivers, which he's done his entire career. And I think Amari Cooper, as good as he's been this year, is going to be even better next year. So I am buy on him. What do you think about Michael Pittman?
Pittman, I actually had him as keep. I wanted to say sell. With the Colts, I can't get on board with them and what they're doing there. They can't seem to avoid turnovers. He's actually having a fairly steady season. He's just not getting the touchdowns is the biggest thing for him. If they could improve their quarterback situation there, I'd buy him all day long, but they haven't been able to do anything this year. So I don't know. I have him as keep. I'd sell him as well, but I don't know. He's a tough one.
I am with you. I'm with keep. So he's currently, this may surprise you, he's the number 16 wide receiver overall. Despite having his quarterback issues. He's averaging close to 10 targets a game, a 30% target share. Obviously, he's got major quarterback issues, and that's why I certainly wouldn't buy him. I don't think you can sell him either. I think he's producing. Right. I would much rather have him, as a person that, he's on my team and he's going to produce as a low end wide receiver, potentially with some upside, rather than trying to sell him because he's producing as it is. So I agree with you on that. Tight end. Let's start with your boy, Cole Kmet.
Oh boy, Cole. I had a buy on him for sure.
Because he's a domer?
Well, yes, he's very smart. He went to Notre Dame. But he's finally turned a page and on point with Fields, it looks like, at least recently. So I'm going to stick with him, and I would buy him all day long. Luckily, I held on to him. Honestly, I thought about dropping him earlier in the season. But, yeah, I'm buying that.
I am also a buy on Cole Kmet. if you're buying Justin Fields, you got to buy Cole Kmet. They're scheming him, as I mentioned, to get into the game plan. You can see my wife walking in the background. Thank you, Harley. Tip your cap.
You're on YouTube. You're on YouTube. Smile.
And he's become a huge red zone target. So, like I said, I would absolutely buy him wherever I could if available. I think the sky is nothing but the limits for him.
Same.
Thanks, Ars. What do you think about George Kittle?
Is she where you get all your fantasy football knowledge?
If you didn't hear her whispering in my ear, usually we have a bug.
Yeah. Kittle, I actually have. I have sell for Kittle. I think we hit on it a little bit earlier in the episode. The 49ers have so many weapons now. It seems, it's starting to get a little thin as far as those targets. They have Kittle moving into more blocking schemes. He's not the Kittle we've seen in the past as far as production, so I would sell him right now.
I agree with you. Again, I think Kittle's a sell for the same exact reasons you do. It's just there's so many weapons, and that's a great thing for the 49ers. It's a very tough team. It's a tough thing for anyone that's owns a 49er. They're so talented, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Garoppolo, he's just not the type of guy that's going to air it out. And I do think, George Kittle is going to have his days where he can explode for 25, 30 points in a game, and that's very rare out of a tight end. But I don't think that I would want to rely on that going forward, certainly based on George Kittle's name. Because I do think you can get probably some decent value for Kittle because as I looked at him, he had, quite a few top 10 finishes this year. I want to say 4 top 10 finishes. So he ain't bad, but I just think he's a little too inconsistent for what I would want. But maybe try and sell high while you can.
Well, another one that I would sell on the 49ers is honestly, if you have Debo, maybe try to offload him because Ayuk's been poaching a lot of his targets, receptions. I just don't see Debo being as much of a factor as what a lot of people thought he would before even McCaffrey got there.
And for the listeners out there, what would you sell Debo for?
Oh, Lord, that's a great question. I don't know. That's a good question, It goes back to, I guess, if you were trying to replace a wide receiver, not a first-round pick. I'll tell you that. No one's going to give you that. Maybe a second? I don't know.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen going forward. And we want to thank you all for listening. This has been a tremendous honor to host this podcast and to be able to discuss fantasy with Chris and and have anyone who's willing to listen hear our thoughts on all of our fantasy.
Yeah. And I hope everyone who's listening realizes that we are amateurs at this at best, but it is a lot of fun, and luckily we have a lot of great guys in our fantasy leagues. So, with that being said, I wanted to let everybody know out there, as well as everybody in our leagues. If we could get a little drum roll, please. Wanted to let people know that on top of YouTube, the podcast is now available and should be available right now on Spotify to view and listen. So, that's 433 million people that we're going to be reaching every week. And I'm sure we'll get 40 views or listens. But for all you
most
people who aren't
important is that we're the breaking episode for that, Chris.
Exactly. Yeah, we are starting it off. So for everybody who can't, whatever reason, watch YouTube or don't have time, now it's on Spotify. You go into work. Um, you can follow in the description down below in the video. We'll have the link so everybody can go follow. And yeah, it's super fun, and I'm excited to see what that does.
Well, thank you. That's pretty awesome. I think the fact that this can blow up potentially is awesome. And again, I don't think anyone expects that, but we appreciate all the time and effort, Chris, that you've put into producing, not only this episode, but every single episode of Fantasy Inception is in making it better quality is pretty awesome. And we appreciate your time, Chris.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it's fun. I think that's why all of us do it is, it's a little bit of work to do the research and obviously record these, but in the end, it's fun, and it's fun to joke around with your buddies and give each other shit. So I'm going to keep doing it as long as Grossman and you guys show up to do it with as well.
I will never turn it down. All right. Well, thank you to everyone who's watching. Thank you to Chris again for not only hosting, but producing. And we will see you next week for week 12 of Fantasy Inception. Take care, everybody.
Absolutely. Good luck, everybody.
We're going to go over the playoff race that's going on in wait till next year. Shit. What's the league called? We have a great show for you today. We're going to be going over a lot of the Dynasty League, and strike that. Let's wait till next year.
There's always next year.
There's always next year. There's always next year.
Yeah.
Right. We have a great show for you today. We're gonna be going over the Dynasty podcast. Fucking A. God damn it. Your outtakes are gonna be great on this.
I know.
They don't have outtakes like this, do they?
No, I never see their outtakes.
Oh, that's fair. Grossman probably cuts them. So I'm gonna start with. We're going to have to edit this out.
Flip the page. Flip the page.
Can I take a piss now? Hang on.
Your six pages of notes.
I think this is the one I needed. I seriously need to take a pee, though.